many years, the Holy Land has represented both a divine and earthly origin. It is a place that people over generations have continued to yearn for and to be drawn towards. It is a place that people feel deeply connected to. It is within this context that the complex history and practice of Christian pilgrimage to the Holy Land has unfolded. However, while pilgrimage has remained a constant component of Christian faith over the centuries, the way in which it has been undertaken has transformed over the years, often in response to the shifting cultural, technological and political realities of both the pilgrim's local environment and that of the Holy Land. Pilgrimage in the 21st century therefore presents its own specific challenges and difficulties. Today, pilgrimage can be likened to walking a tightrope coursing its way between many contending pressures, a sacred past and a contentious present, ancient stones and living stones, Palestinians' claims and Israelis' claims, taking a stand for justice and engaging with multiple perspectives. In order to grapple with the challenge of walking this tightrope, we will explore several key questions. Why do we go on pilgrimage? How is pilgrimage conventionally undertaken, and how could it be done differently? How can being in the places where Jesus lived, taught, died, and was resurrected make a real difference to both our lives and the lives of those who live in the Holy Land today? We will journey to Jerusalem, Nazareth, the Sea of Galilee, and Bethlehem, all the time engaging with both these places and the local people that live there. We will both walk in the footsteps of Jesus and meet with a diverse spectrum of living stones, discussing these questions with them and learning from their reflections, insights, struggles, and ambitions. We go on pilgrimage because we are aware as Christians, suggests Rowan Williams, that our faith has roots in a particular time and a particular place. This soil, these stones, have been touched by the reality that has made us alive and set us on fire. There will be immense pressures, very understandable and real pressures, here and now, to take a stand, to be there simply as advocates, simply as partisans. I'm not condemning advocacy or partisanship at all, but I am suggesting that pilgrimage is something a bit different. Equally, it is no good coming back with that sanitized, picturesque version of what's going on, which ignores what has been made possible since.
This land is certainly sacred for so many religions, but it is also sacred for Christianity. It is a Christian land also, where Christians come to discover their own roots. This is the place where it all happened. The idea of having pilgrims is practically the proof of the sacredness of this land and of the beauty of making an experience of faith, coming to discover the origins of one's faith here in the Holy Land. Nowadays, the fact of coming to the Holy Land on pilgrimage has become more easy because of faster travel. I mean, before it was practically a heroic act to come on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Nowadays, it's much easier.
I think it was only when I came to university, when I was exposed for the first time to Christianity, when I took history, and I had to take one course in New Testament, and that was the first time that I actually opened the New Testament. And I was fascinated, and I thought, how come no one had told me about it? Many groups that come here just come to visit the stones, just come to visit the history, ignore the people around. And we want to encourage them to find a way, and we want to help them to connect to Jewish people or to Christian people or to Muslim people that come to pray in their holy sites.
There is also the phenomenon of religious tourism, which is different from pilgrimage. A pilgrim would come, first of all, with the idea of praying in the holy places, and he would come motivated by faith more than by just cultural curiosity. All the holy places in the Holy Land, whether they are Christian or Jewish or Muslim, should be respected first and foremost as places of prayer and worship, and not just as places of cultural interest. For example, the Basilica of the Holy Sepulchre is not a museum, it's a church. Some pilgrims might remain a bit sorry that their pilgrimage was not as spiritual as they would have liked it to be, because they found the shrines very crowded with tourists. They should be prepared beforehand, because this land is not a very easygoing place to visit. One has to be prepared to come to a place which is multicultural, which is multi-religious, multi-ethnic, and so the pilgrim has to be prepared to face the religious diversity and also the social and political diversity of this land. Otherwise, he wouldn't understand what he has come here for.
Sometimes in the world I feel that Christianity or the values of Christianity have no effect or no influence on politics. Politics is something and Christianity is something else, or the values of Christianity are something else. When we have pilgrims coming, they should bring these values with them, spend more time with the people, try to meet not only the churches and the stones, but also the living stones. Without them, there wouldn't be any sense for the Holy Land.
When you bring Christian and Jews together, you have to discuss the history, you have to discuss the theology, you have to discuss the fears that the Jews bring with them from Europe, and you have to discuss the conflict. When Jews and Christians come to dialogue and start to talk about the history of Christian in Europe and about the Holocaust, the Christians here don't understand why the Holocaust should be an issue in the dialogue, why the persecution of Jews in Europe should be an issue in the dialogue. They say, you're the majority now, you have an army, you have a strong state. Why do you keep raising the issue of the past in the reality of the 21st century?
That's why they should come here, because if they want to understand this country, this place, the Jewish people at least living here, they have to engage with the Holocaust. I don't think there is a way to understand the Jewish people of today, and certainly the Israeli society, the Jewish part of it, of today, without understanding what the Holocaust was and what an effect it has, it still has, on our lives here.
When you come here as a pilgrim and you connect to the history, you also feel responsible for the present, and you have to be aware of the reality of the Holy Land, because the Holy Land is not disconnected from political, economical, social problems. And since it's not my Holy Land or the Palestinian Holy Land or this and that person Holy Land, but it's our Holy Land, it's our responsibility to see the complexity. There's right in each side, there's wrong in each side. And I think if you come to the Holy Land and you leave the Holy Land with more questions, you did a real pilgrimage.
You should bear in mind that the Christians are Palestinians. Sometimes, many foreigners or many people who come from outside think this is a Jew, this is a Christian, this is a Muslim, and they deal as if it is an ethnicity. It's not, We have Israelis, Palestinians. The Israelis could be Jews, Christians, Muslims. Palestinians could be Christians, Muslims, and Samaritans. Pilgrims come with a very strict program. They only see one point of view. And the majority, to be honest with you, is on the Israeli side. As I see pilgrimage, people are coming to walk in the footsteps of our Lord Jesus. And when they come, they should bring peace with them. They are encouraged to be fair, to be in Israel, to be in the West Bank, and to understand both sides.
Israel's long-term future depends upon her ability to be able to flourish in the Arab world. to make a constructive contribution to the situation of the peoples in the Holy Land, the most important thing we have to do is to shatter this paradigm of a zero-sum mentality. The assumption that if you care for Palestinians, you have to be hostile to Israel. Or that if you care for Israel's welfare, you have to be insensitive to the Palestinian plight. Now, this often leads to Christian communities playing into that zero-sum game and enlisting their brothers and sisters abroad for a partisan position, which is very often very simplistic in its reading of the reality on the ground, often so simplistic it ignores the historical reality altogether, and generally tends to engender a prejudicial attitude towards Israel and sometimes even towards Jews.
The peace situation is very, very bad. People lost hope. And because people lost hope, I see the importance of some people carrying the torch in order to give people hope again. We have to go to the mosques and to the Ministry of Religious Affairs and get the rabbis and the sheikhs and the priests to change the narrative. Instead of demonizing the other, you have to tolerate the other, you have to accept the other, you have to open a dialogue with the other. You don't make peace with your friends. You always make peace with your enemies.
We next travel to the village of Silwan in East Jerusalem, often termed the City of David, to examine the way that history and the Bible are used and abused to achieve specific political ends. Buried under the village lands, 5,000 years of history bind the stories of ancient nations and rulers with the present life of the local residents. Dozens of excavated archaeological sites tell the complex multicultural saga of Jerusalem. In recent years, the excavation and presentation of the archaeology of Silwan has been placed in the hands of an Israeli Jewish settler non-governmental organization, resulting in conflict with local Palestinians at the very basic level of existence.
Everything is very political here. There's nothing that you can do which is not political. Even being a tourist is a political activity. Doing excavation is definitely political. I think archaeology is a very powerful tool. Now, it also could be very powerful tool as a positive tool to bridge between cultures and people, but also could be very nationalistic tool that emphasize one thing and connected it to very specific identity. What happened about a few years ago, that the Israeli authorities, together with the settlers, understood that if they are just emphasizing the archaeological site, suddenly you see how through the archaeology the present is disappearing. It doesn't mean the present does not exist. It doesn't mean that the houses you see are not exist here, or the Palestinians that you can later talk to are not here. But for the people that are coming here, they're coming to a place that the narrative they hear and the narrative they see, not just what they hear, is the archaeological narrative that's been explained to them in a very specific way, how it's connected to their identity, to their heritage, and why it should be under Israeli hold in the future.
When the settlers came and they started excavation, they found Islamic cemetery, they found some Christians antiques, they found a beautiful thing for the peasant, for the Muslims, for the Christian. They took and they throw everything, they leave some stones, then started to call this place the second temple. The judge said the Jews have the right to find their history. He didn't care about our houses, what happened, how it's fell down, how it has the cracks, how it's all the time my house like that. He only said that the Jews have the right to find the history.
Most of the people, the main reason they're coming to Israel, Palestine is because they're coming to the Holy Land in one way or another. They want to learn about the history of Jerusalem. So for them to come here, they tell us that the idea is to tell the tourists, listen, there is no present, there is only the Bible here. You cannot ignore the Bible when you're coming to Israel, Palestine. It doesn't matter if you are a believer or not. The Bible is deep in the Israeli identity, at least. I think the Bible is delivering us a historical story with a lot of information This is kind of guiding that we are criticizing, a guiding that you're coming with the Bible, and the explanation is in the Bible, although there is archaeology here that you can see. When she talks about what you see in the other side, it's again mentioning of the Bible and about a grave that no one of us saw actually. And you see how the touristic narrative that's been delivered here ignore totally the present. And nobody even asking, what do we see here? They might ask maybe something about the archaeology or when it's related, but the story is so powerful if it's from the Bible or if it's from the quote that we're having here. So we're ignoring what our eyes actually see.
Thank you.
I think that coming with the Bible to this tour is misunderstanding the history of Jerusalem. This is the core of the conflict in many ways. I mean, can we as Israelis understand that the diverse ancient cultures that exist in this area is not just something that belongs to us, the Israelis. There used to be here Islamic layers, used to be here Palestinian layers, used to be here Christian layers. So it's not just one layer of one identity or one nation or one culture that you can talk about.
This is the Holy Land for everyone. And I believe that the Jews were here, and the Christians were here, and the Canaanites 5,500 years were here. Why it's right for them to go back 3,000 years and not allowed for us to go to visit our villages which occupied in 1948?
I come from there, and I have memories, born as mortals are. I have a mother and a house with many windows. I have brothers, friends, and a prison cell with a cold window. Mine is the wave snatched by seagulls. I have my own view, and I weep to make myself known to a returning cloud. I learnt all the words and broke them up to make a single word, homeland.
When Israel was established, there was over 450 villages that were completely destroyed. Lifta is the last remaining Canaanite Palestinian village that exists in the state of Israel today. There are approximately 60 homes that have not been settled, that history remains here. There was no distinction before 1948. My grandfather, my great-grandfather would attend Jewish weddings. The Jewish people would attend the Muslim weddings, the Christian weddings. But the Civil War separated us. And this is what is remaining of our village. Here is where the water would come down and would go flow down. Yeah? So we are just going to follow the water. The original people of Lifta, they come here and we clean this land. We care for the land as it was yesterday, only we left the land. Since 2004, 2005, there has been several plans to develop on our village. The development plans, unfortunately, did not include the people of Lifta. What's happening today is they are building bridges, they are building highways around the village, surrounding the village, on top of the village, to connect one highway to another. You understand? What they did to you there, what happened there? We joined forces and they created a Lifta coalition alongside the many other people from Israel, Jews, Christians, to save our village.
I very much live in my own ancestors' past in Poland, in the shtetls that they grew up in, and I kind of recognized Lifta as a Palestinian shtetl. Something in me said, just like I am involved in preserving the history of Jews in Poland, I figured if we are asking people for respect and understanding for our own elders, we have to show similar respect for Bajas's elders. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I would be sitting here next to this man in Lifta trying to have a little role in saving it, I could never have imagined it. If you look at any of the Jerusalem travel guides, it does not mention Lifta. It's almost invisible. My hope is that more and more people will discover this place and give a voice to saving it while it still can be saved.
Pilgrimage is a difficult process that demands questioning and testing one's assumptions, one's faith and one's politics. It's a time for serious contemplation and revaluation, and for opening oneself up to new and challenging experiences and perspectives. Jesus, who for 40 days wandered in the wilderness, provides a model for such an arduous journey of searching and introspection. Donald Coggan notes that this process of wandering in the wilderness is a rough phrase and reflects a rough experience. One can get lost in the desert. One can get sun-scorched. One can be chilled to the bone.
Se jette là à 3 km dans le lac de Galilée. Il est de Bethsaïde, et son frère André, bien sûr.
But if pilgrimage is ultimately more than a challenging personal journey, and more than an act of tourism and an act of advocacy, then what is it exactly? How can the experience of pilgrimage bridge the gap between what the Holy Land was and what it has become today? Half an hour down the road from Nazareth, near Cana of Galilee, Sindiana, an organization led by women striving for social change, provides a striking example of locals working in concrete partnerships and solidarity, bridging the divide between Palestinian and Jewish citizens of Israel, between Muslims, Christians and Jews.
המטע שאתם רואים לפניכם היום חוגג 3 שנים להקמתו.
Simple people can create a change in a very complicated reality. Personally, what I like is actions, not just talking about what we're going to do or saying some nice cliches about Jews and Arabs and peace. Just doing things together, really. It creates a connection, which is beyond politics, it's beyond differences between people, it's something very intimate.
The gap between Arabs and Jews is very, very wide. People don't talk to each other, and they don't believe that the peace is something which is possible at all. The main issue of this project is that Arabs and Jews come together to invest in this land and enjoy the fruits of it.
If you say olive in this region, it's a symbol, but here it's not a symbol, it's practice. It's a real discipline of practicing solidarity and humanism.
This is something that people stop to believe in. So what we are doing is challenging society. The Holy Land is the people for me. Before the religious places, the people are the holy issue here. Arabs and Jews have to work together and can work together and participate because we share the same land. There is no other option here.
In Bethlehem, our last stop, the interplay between the past and present is particularly salient. Here we ask and explore, how does one go about actualizing Christian values such as love, peace and justice through the practice of pilgrimage? What contribution does and could pilgrimage make to challenging injustices and ensuring equal rights for all people living in the Holy Land?
When I say Holy Land, it's Israel and Palestine, both areas. So to be neutral with the definition of Israel or Palestine, so we use the Holy Land. Some people coming in, they don't know that there are Christians in the Holy Land, even in small numbers, but yes, we are still living in Bethlehem area, in Jerusalem, in Nazareth, Tiberias, but the Christians are leaving the country because of the difficulties, and we are losing 300 families per year. This is actually a major concern. So what we always ask, please come to us, get to know more about us. Be our ambassadors, come and pray with us. Come and have a spiritual experience, come and feel with your sisters and brothers. Be happy with their happiness, share their sadness, show your solidarity. As we are in the same path, in the same faith, regardless to the denomination, but at the end we are all Christians. The closure that we are in, specifically in Bethlehem area, surrounded by the wall, you are controlled. There is no freedom. Keeping the people in this area without having the right to go out, it's stealing the freedom of a human being.
There is a system of oppression and occupation that exists in this land, that one group of people has stronger military, economic, and political powers, and they use this power to overrule another community. So any form of oppression that exists in this Holy Land, we feel needs to be addressed. We ask the question, what is not allowing for Israeli Jewish society to actually engage in making peace happen? As the more powerful community, why aren't they seeing the reality of occupation or oppression or the injustice, or ignoring it, or justifying it when it happens? The tools for engaging in this are the tools of nonviolence. We train in nonviolence, we develop methodology and strategy in nonviolence. We work with schools to develop curriculum for nonviolence education for children. Our strength is not in arms, it's not in military warfare. Our experiences of engaging in armed resistance in the past have not come out with positive results for us as Palestinians, while engaging in nonviolence has actually created results on the ground for the Palestinian community. So one of the activities we are engaged in is home rebuilding campaigns for Palestinian homes that have been destroyed illegally by the Israeli military.
This project behind me is a home rebuilding project that we run annually. It's demolished by the Israeli military, and a group of internationals join our project for 2 weeks to do the rebuilding, and they do also the fundraising for the project, and they come here to help physically in the construction.
So I'd like to invite Abu Mustafa, the mayor of Batir.
We believe that if Jesus was here today, he won't be just going to the Nativity Church and leaving. He will be just among people, helping people, teaching people, talking with people, and to join the community and work with them.
Engaging in pilgrimage goes much deeper than just coming as tourists. Sometimes I see tourists or Christians treat the Holy Land like Disneyland. is not just about visiting the holy sites or even visiting groups that are engaging in peace work or meeting the local Christian community. It is also about looking at what services you can bring, what talents you can bring and provide to the local communities that live in this land. We need an awakening. We need a movement to happen here where locally and globally we begin to bring back the spirituality of this land. The new meaning of pilgrimage is peace pilgrimage, is working for peace.
What sense of responsibility do you feel for both the places and the people of the Holy Land? What can you give to the Holy Land, and what can you gain from it? In what ways can the experience of pilgrimage leave you asking more questions and more aware of the complexities of the Holy Land? In what way can it leave you confused? In what ways can it leave you with a clearer sense of purpose and with the motivation to take action? How can you engage with an open heart and an open mind, actively listening to multiple narratives and the layers of history, while also critically engaging, taking a stand and advocating justice? What is present and what do you look at when you are in the Holy Land? What is absent and what do you ignore? What voices do you hear? Which voices are silent? Once I sat on the steps by a gate at David's Tower, begins Yehuda Amichai's poem Jerusalem Tourists. I placed my 2 heavy baskets at my side. A group of tourists was standing around their guide and I became their target marker. You see that man with the baskets? Just right of his head there's an arch from the Roman period. Just right of his head. But he's moving, he's moving. I said to myself, redemption will only come if their guide tells them, you see that arch from the Roman period? It's not important. But next to it, left and down a bit, there sits a man who's bought fruit and vegetables for his family.